Hi everyone, I'm Brian with OBEDIA and pcaudiolabs, and I'm going to give you a quick rundown today on how to make use of the brand new show page function in PreSonus Studio One 5. This is a new feature that is meant to bring Studio One from the studio to the stage, and I think this is a pretty cool one that a lot of folks are going to have some fun with and probably have a lot of use for, because again, it works to give you that full ecosystem feel that PreSonus Studio One is so good at, with being able to produce, mix, master, and release, and now perform all within the same application. So let's just dive right in and talk about it. The show page looks very similar to the project page in Studio One. We've talked about the project page before. Except it has a lot more vertical sections than it does horizontal sections as in the project page. And I'm just going to talk real quickly about all of those. And I should note one thing real quick. This is still kind of an early version of Studio One 5, so some things may change. So if you have a version of this and you're playing along with us at home and you find that some things are different, have no fear. It's just because we're using maybe a slightly more new release version, and but I'm sure things are going to stay mostly the same. So that said, as I was mentioning, there's some vertical sections of the show page. The first vertical section is this one right over here, and this is where you can set information about your show. You can set your artist name, you can set the venue that you're playing at. You can even add a picture right here if you wish, by browsing to find a picture to add to this show. Helps you to keep track maybe of what you're using this for, and etc. And then you have your set list section right here. And the set list is where you're going to build out your songs for your set list. This is just the same as if you were writing down songs on a piece of paper with a Sharpie before a show. I'm just clicking the plus symbol right here and adding new songs. Every time I add a new one, I get a new item right here, which I can double click and rename. I'm going to call this one Song 1 and Song 2 and Song 3. So now I have 3 songs. And if I check out my timeline right here in the arrange section in the project page, I have each of my songs. Now these are mostly just entries for my songs, and this is very similar to the arranger track in Studio One, which again we've talked about, because each of these is sort of just a section acting as a placeholder for the song. You can adjust the size of these if you wish, and you can also adjust their length and other information down here in the left-hand corner of the song page. But we don't have any data attached to these just yet. These are just basically saying this is where songs are going to be. It gives us information on these songs. And the most important thing, well, one of the most important things that I should mention here is going to be this little box right here, which is an icon just to the right of each of my song names. And when I click on that, I have 3 little icons labeled Continue, Stop at End, and Loop. Now the default option is set to stop at end, but I also have continue and loop. And what these do is they basically denote how it is that your song, when in play or show or performance mode, is going to act, what is going to happen with it when you hit play. So by default, with the stop at end option, if I hit play right here in Studio One, and I let this play to the end of the song is going to stop when it reaches the beginning of the next song. However, if I click right here at the end of Song 1, or for the this section of Song 1, and then hit play again, and now let my playback happen, you'll notice that now with the continue option, I've now jumped directly into Song 2. Or I could set the loop option, which of course would loop Song 1 if I wanted. So by default, stop at end is probably the most useful one, because most of the time, in my experience performing live with a laptop and etc. on stage, I generally want my song to stop, and then I talk to the crowd and stuff like that, and then I jump into the next song. But the good thing is that your next song is immediately queued up when you're using the stop at end function. But if you wanted to just keep a continuous mix going or something like that, you could just use the continue function. And if you use the continue function, you'll just roll right into the next song. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward, I think. So that's our set list section. Then we've got our players section and the arrange section. Now, I've already been talking about the arrange section a little bit, of course, with these song blocks right up here. I've got a ruler at the top, again, similar to my regular settings in Studio One. I can set a title right here. Let's call it title for right now. And then, of course, I have my players. Now, what are players? Players are, just as the name implies, these are virtual players that are going to play for me when I play a song, a performance, etc., using the show page with Studio One. So in order to utilize players, I can click on the plus symbol right here, and this allows me to add a new player. Now I have three options here, which is backing track, real instrument, and virtual instrument. These are pretty straightforward. Backing track is just going to be a backing track. It's audio that I had previously recorded, something that I may have produced in Studio One or maybe elsewhere, whatever that may be, and I can import that into Studio One. Another cool thing is that I can also do a mix down from a Studio One song directly into the show page, so that way if I make changes in my songs, I can quickly and easily import those into my show page if I wish. But the backing track section is basically going to denote that. I can give that a name if I want. I'll just call this backing track for right now. Set the number of them that I want to make. Choose the option auto color or choose a color if I wish. I can set presets for effects that I want to assign to that player track, and then I can set my output. I'll just set that to main, and I'll click on OK. So this creates a new backing track. And now I'll go ahead and create an aux track. This is a real instrument. This would be if I was playing maybe a guitar or something like that. And again, I'll give it a color. Let's do something that's a little more lively. There we go. And again, I can set presets. Maybe I want to use Ampere or something else on that preset track if I wanted. I can set the input, so that would be the input from my audio interface. That'd be where I plug my guitar or my instrument in, whatever that may be, and then of course set the output and hit OK. So there's an aux track that would be for my guitar, and then I'll hit the plus symbol one more time, and this is virtual instrument, and we'll just call this one synth and create one of these, and again we'll set a color for it. And so here under the input section, I have the option to choose my MIDI input. This is my MIDI input device. And then I can choose a new instrument or an existing instrument if I have an instrument already instantiated in my show page. I could just leave this a new instrument for now, however, and then hit OK. So some of these tracks have already kind of been set up, specifically the aux track, because if I had a guitar plugged in to my audio interface, I could just start playing into that. I might want to do some settings to it, but I could just start playing my guitar. But these other two tracks, I need to start doing something with these. You notice, again, I kind of have these placeholders, these colored placeholders right here that are denoting my song, but I don't really have anything associated with them yet. So let's get, first of all, some backing track in here, and I can do that by just clicking and dragging and adding some backing track. Whoops, sorry, that's the folder. Can't do that. There we go. That's another song right there. And then I can do another one here. And then, as I was saying, a cool function is that I can actually bring a song directly in from Studio One into my show page. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to jump real quick into this new features project, or song, should I say, that I was working on in Studio One. It's nothing very special, but I'm going to click right now on Song and then Add to Show. And then I'm going to use this option, New Show. And now this does a mix down based on the positioning of my song start and end markers in my Studio One song. And then this is my song that I was just working on. And you notice that this is named after the song that I was working on in Studio One. So that's a cool feature. And that means that if I make any changes to my song, as long as I save and update my mastering file, they will be reflected in my show page, which is pretty awesome. So now I've got backing tracks. And I've got the same one twice there, but that's okay. You get the point. And then, of course, I have the song that I brought in from my Studio One song. So I've got a few different songs right there, backing tracks that I brought in. Guitar, of course, that would be a live instrument where I'm playing one into Studio One. And then I've got the synth section. Now the synth section is cool because this allows me to make use of virtual instruments in Studio One. in the show page. So I just now dragged and dropped the My Tai onto my synth page, synth track right there, and the My Tai is now going to be available to me for being able to play MIDI inside of my show. So we'll go ahead and just open up a patch real quick. Okay, cool. So I've got a patch there that is ready to go, and I've got some players. And my players are essentially just the same as members of my band. These are essentially virtual musicians that are going to do something for me when I'm playing using the show page in Studio One. So that's pretty straightforward. This is essentially, I mean, this would be similar to just, bringing some form of a tape deck up and on a stage and hitting play, but we want to take things to the next level, obviously. So there's definitely some cooler stuff that we can do. Now, as I alluded to earlier, you can make changes to each of these songs and their settings by adjusting everything down here in the left-hand corner, including tempo and time signature and things along those lines. But one of the really cool features inside of the show page in Studio One 5 is the ability to make use of patches. And patches generally in the digital music world have to do with synthesizers, a patch being a different preset or some grouping of settings for an instrument, usually a synthesizer or something along those lines. But in the show page in Studio One 5, patches apply to any number of different things that I can do on each of the songs right here in Studio One. And I'll just show you real quickly how this works. I'm going to start off by clicking and creating a patch, and I'm just going to call this my default patch. So I did that by clicking on the plus symbol here right next to his patch pull down. And now I'm going to create another one, and I'll just call this maybe like scene 1. You can call this anything you want. And so what is this going to do? Well, if I click on this pull down menu right here, and I select the option default. So this is my default setting, basically. This is all of my mixer settings for this song that I'm specifically editing the patch for. Everything is set to standard. It's set, my fader is set to unity gain. I'm not instantiating any effects or anything like that. But now let's say that I want to have a scene where I instantiate some effects. Maybe I bring in a big reverb or some other effect. Maybe I drop the volume of a track or something along those lines. So I'm going to jump over to scene 1 right here. I'm going to make an adjustment to my mixer, to my fader. And let's add a couple of effects. Let's just add a limiter maybe right here from PreSonus, and then I will also add, how about some kind of delay, Z beat delay. Okay, so I've added a couple of effects, and I want these to only maybe come in at certain times. I want to trigger it or something along those lines, so I can do that by making use of these scenes. Now that I've added my effects, changed my fader, etc., I'm going to save this scene. I'm going to click on this button right here, which looks kind of like a repeat button. I'm going to click on that. That's going to update my scene. So now check out what happens. If I click on this pull down menu and select my default patch, everything goes away. My fader goes back to unity gain, my insert effects are gone, but if I click here and I select scene 1, now my insert effects are back and my fader drops down to the setting that I had set on its gain setting. So I can do this for each of my songs if I wish. And I've got the ability to do this on my actual entries right here in my song blocks. So I can click right here on the song. There's an option for mute, which would mute this passage. So maybe I just don't want something to play in a certain part of a song. I don't want that player to play. Or we want to use my default setting, or maybe I want to use scene 1. So I can jump back and forth between all of those really easily, which is super cool. So I could rinse and repeat this essentially for each of my players and my song blocks and etc. In Studio One show page. Now, one thing that I do really like about this is that I could make use of this, again, as I was talking about for synthesizer patches. I think this would be incredibly useful for synth patches, and here's the reason why. I'm going to go ahead and open up my My Tai. And let's say that on different songs, I want to shift my My Tai's preset to different sounds. And that's one of the ways that this would be super, super useful. So I'm going to create, again, let's do this. We're going to set a default patch, which would be no patch loaded up on the My Tai. And I will leave this one set right here, which just says My Tai, and I'll update that patch. Now I'm going to create a new patch, and I'll maybe call this the song 1 patch. Okay? And then I'm going to do a song 2 patch and a song 3 patch. Okay, now I've got 3 patches. I haven't done anything on them yet, but let's jump to song 1. So now on song 1, let's say that I want this sound. Okay, I'm going to update this first patch. It's the patch 2. It's called song 1 patch, however, and then I'll jump to my next patch, and I'm going to, again, change the sound. Okay, cool, and update it, and then I'll jump to another patch, and one more new sound. Cool. And I'll update it. Now, check this out. This is what's really cool. I can click on each of these patches, and as I change patch numbers, so does my MaiTai instance change. So this is awesome because what this means is that for these players, I can set a different player for each one of these songs. So now, again, the awesome thing about this, let's open up my MaiTai instance, and I'll show you what happens when I jump around. So here's my first song, my second song, MaiTai changes again, and my third song, and MaiTai changes yet again. So this is awesome because if I were a keyboard player, maybe I'm not the keyboard player, maybe I have someone playing keyboards for me, or maybe I am just a solo artist and I'm playing by myself, which is a little hard. I know this. I do this a lot. And it's hard to do a lot. You've only got 2 hands. You need to engage with your audience. You don't want to look at a laptop all the time. You don't want to be there changing patches and all this stuff. You can program your patch changes immediately into Studio One in the show page. So that means that when you were playing and you reached the end of your song and then you jumped into your next song, that means that your instance of MaiTai will immediately change. It swaps over to the next patch. So the cool thing about this is it would just basically allow you to just really quickly jump back and forth between patches, and you don't have to think about doing any of this stuff. So that, I think, is probably one of the absolute coolest features in the show page, because that's one of those things that is incredibly time consuming and really tedious when you're on stage. I know this because, again, I've done this quite a lot, and it does get a little bit frustrating. So that's something that I think is really awesome. And again, you could repeat this as well. Let's say that I were to add Ampire to my guitar track, and I was maybe playing the guitar, and I wanted different Ampire patches for different songs. So again, I would go ahead and create a few different patches. We'll just go ahead and call this patch 1, and this is patch 2, and then patch 3. All right, so I've got 3 patches now. I'll go to patch 1 and make a choice as to how I want Ampire to be set up, and I'll update it, and then I'll go to patch 2 and again do the same thing and update it, and patch 3, and once more the same thing again. Cool. Okay, so the awesome thing about this is what this is going to allow me to do now, again, is set a different patch on each one of my songs. So I'll set patch 1, patch 2, patch 3, and now jumping back and forth between my songs, Ampire shifts along with my patch settings for each song. So again, if you were a guitarist or working with a guitarist or anything like that, everything can shift and change automatically. If you knew your guitarist had a different Ampire, stomp box, etc. setting, different virtual instrument, virtual effects setting, whatever it may be, you can do all of that using patches, because remember, patches aren't just associated with one thing, they're associated with everything that is happening in that patch instance. So that means everything that we change on that track for that patch, virtual instruments, gain settings on our faders, whatever it may be, everything changes and gets saved as long as you save your patch. So I really dig this feature. I think this is one of the standout things about the show page in Studio One 5, and I think it's going to help a lot of folks to be able to go to the stage using Studio One. And so now, once you made all these settings, of course, you can keep adding songs and everything else. But once you made all your settings, then you probably want to maybe go ahead and control some of the features and functions of the software. And that's where you can click on the Controls tab right here. And there's some different options right here First of all, this is all going to have to do with how you're going to control these controls using MIDI, external MIDI into Studio One. I've got 4 different presets here, which is 8 buttons, 8 knobs, 8 faders. This is going to be 16 knobs. Here's 16 faders. And then right here is going to be 16 buttons. I'm going to go ahead and go to 16 faders. And the cool thing about this is what this allows me to do is to be able to take control of a number of different features, functions, etc. of either my virtual instruments, maybe insert effects that I have instantiated inside of my session. We can look right here in the console, backing track, inserts, beat delay. So now I can set and drag over options from my instruments, or from my effects, should I say. I can control different parts of Ampire. Maybe I want to control parts of the stomp box. Things like that. So basically, I can control just about anything here. If it is mappable in some way or another, I can map it. So making use of my MIDI controller, or whatever that may be, a PreSonus MIDI controller of some kind, maybe a fader port, something along those lines, or maybe an external MIDI controller, whatever that may be. I can drag and drop all of these different parameters onto my knobs or faders, buttons, whatever it may be, inside of the controls section in Studio One. I can map everything in any way that I want, which is incredibly useful. And once I have mapped everything and I'm happy with the way that it is set up, then I can jump into perform mode, because now it's time to perform using Studio One and the show page. And so when I jump into perform, I get this super simplified overall view of the show page in Studio One 5. I have my songs over here. When I click on each one, I see the different settings that I may have associated with it. I have all of my players listed right here. I can switch back and forth between all of them. I can see each of their patches. If I start my playback, I can see a timer right here, a countdown, a bar that'll start on the left and then fill up as I get near the end of the song. This tells me how much time I have left, what song is going to come next. I can set my MIDI control link right here for controlling these faders, knobs, buttons, whatever it may be that I have set up to work with the parameters, the controllable parameters inside of Studio One. I have an all notes off button. That's a MIDI freakout button in case everything breaks. I've got mute, and of course I've got metering right over here as well to keep an eye on everything while I'm playing. And that's it. And this is just, it's really cool. It basically just takes Studio One to the stage using the show page. I think it's an incredibly cool feature. I think that a lot of folks are going to find some great use of this when they're working with Studio One. Overall, I just think it's actually a really cool feature. Again, I've performed live on stage with a laptop a lot. I know it can be a pain, and I think that this is going to help you to get around that. So that's a look at the show page, everyone. Again, some of this might change, so if you've got questions, comments, or anything else, get in touch with us at OBEDIA. That's where we can help you to learn your technology and tame your music technology, get the most out of it. That's what we do best here at OBEDIA and PC Audio Labs. If you need a great Pro Audio laptop to perform from, make sure to check out pcaudiolabs. And PC Audio Labs is where we have awesome Pro Audio laptops that you can take on stage with you and Studio One to perform live and get the job done. You can find all that information at obedia.com and pcaudiolabs.com. And of course, don't forget to check out PreSonus.com to find out more about PreSonus Studio One 5. And if you need training in Studio One, give us a call at OBEDIA. So there you have it, everyone. That's the show page in PreSonus Studio One version 5. Hope you found this useful. If you have questions and comments, get in touch. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day and take care.
Today's Pro Audio hardware and software can give you excellent results if you know how to use it properly. OBEDIA can help you to get the most out of your Pro Audio hardware and software. Why spend your time scouring the internet for answers or digging through manuals? With one quick call to an OBEDIA technician, you'll be connected with someone who can give you the answers that you need in real time via phone and remote desktop. OBEDIA technicians are trained in all major digital audio applications on Mac, PC, iOS, and Android devices. OBEDIA member subscriptions are cost-effective, give you great member benefits, and OBEDIA is here 7 days a week to help you get the most out of your digital audio hardware and software. No matter what your level of expertise, OBEDIA can help you to stay focused and productive and get your music back on track. Start taming your technology today with OBEDIA.